Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Storytime with Uncle Monkey. I am your Uncle Monkey. Today's story is Tom Thumb. There was a poor farmer who was sitting by his hearth in the evenings, stirring the fire, while his wife sat spinning. Then he said,
How sad it is that we have no children. It's so quiet at our place, and in other houses it's so bustling and jolly.
"Yes," his wife replied with a small sigh. "Even if there was just one child, and even if it was very small, only as big as a thumb, I would be contented. We'd love it dearly anyway." Now it came about that the woman became pregnant and 7 months later gave birth to a child that was physically perfect, but no taller than a thumb. Then they said, "It's just as we wished, and it will be our dear child." And because of the boy's size, they named him Tom Thumb. The child was well provided with nourishment, but grew no bigger, remaining the same size as at birth. Yet the look in his eyes was intelligent, and he soon proved to be a clever, handy boy who was successful in everything he undertook. One day the farmer made ready to go into the forest to chop down trees, and he said to himself,
Oh, how I wish someone could bring the cart after me. Oh, father, Tom Thumb called, I'll bring the wagon, rely on it, and it'll be in the forest at the proper time. How could that be done? You're much too small to lead the horse without the reins. That makes no difference, father. If mother could just harness him, I'll sit down in the horse's ear and instruct him which way to go. Well, his father replied, let's try it once. When the time came, Tom Thumb's mother harnessed the horse and put Tom Thumb in its ear. Then the little fellow shouted out the directions, right, left, gee, yeehaw! Things went perfectly smoothly, as with a master driver, and the cart took the correct path to the woods. It so happened that, just as it was taking a curve and the little fellow was calling, yeehaw! Two unfamiliar men came by.
"Say," one of them said, "what's this? A cart is driving, and a carter is calling the horse, but he's nowhere to be seen." "There must be something eerie about this," said the other. "Let's follow the cart and see where it stops." But the cart drove all the way into the woods, at the very place where the trees were being felled. When Tom Thumb caught sight of his father, he shouted, "See, father, here I am with the cart. Now take me down." His father grasped the horse with his left hand, and with his right took his son out of its ear. Then he set the boy down on straw in great merriment. When the two strangers caught sight of Tom Thumb, they were speechless with astonishment. Then one of them took the other over to the side and said, "Listen, that little chap could make our fortune. If we exhibited him for money in a big town, oh my gosh, people would pay so much to see him. Let's buy him." They went to the father and said, "Sell us the little man. He'll have a good life with us."
No, said the father. He's the apple of my eye, and I wouldn't sell him for all the gold in the world.
But after Tom heard about the negotiations, he crawled up his father's jacket pleats. Taking a stand on his shoulder, he whispered in his ear, "Father, let them have me. I'll surely come back." Then his father sold him to the two men for a substantial sum of money. "Where do you want to sit?" they asked him. "Oh, just put me on the brim of your hat. There I can walk back and forth and look at the scenery, and I won't fall off." They granted his request. They went walking until dusk. Then the little fellow said, "Please put me down. I have to go." "Just stay up there," said the man on whose head he was sitting. "I won't pay it any mind. Plenty of times the birds drop something on me." "No," said Tom Thumb. "I know perfectly well what's proper. Please put me down right this minute." The man took off his hat and set the little fellow down in the field alongside the path. Then Tom leapt away, crept a little distance here and there among the sods, and suddenly slipped into a mouse hole that he had been looking for. "Good evening, gentlemen. I'll see y'all later. Go on home without me," he called to them, making fun of them. They ran over and jabbed into the mouse hole with sticks, but it was a wasted effort. Tom Thumb crept deeper and deeper in, and since it soon got completely dark outside, they were compelled to wend their way home again, heavy with vexation and light of purse. When Tom Thumb was sure they had gone, he crept out of the underground passage. "Walking on the field in the dark is so dangerous," he said. "In no time you could break your leg or your neck, or both." Fortunately, he came upon an empty snail shell. "Thank heavens," he said. "In this I can spend the night in safety." And he entered it. Before long, just as he was about to fall asleep, he heard two men walking by, one of whom was saying, "How should we get about laying our hands on the rich parson's money and silverware?" "I could tell you that," Tom Thumb interrupted loudly. "What was that? I done heard somebody talking." They stood still and listened. Then Tom Thumb spoke again. "Take me along and I'll help you." "Where are you?" "Just look on the ground and find where the voice is coming from, you ninny." The thieves finally found him and lifted him up. "Little runt, how can you help us?" they asked. "Look," he replied, "I'll creep between the window bars into the parson's room, and I'll hand out whatever you want." "Fine," they said. "We'll see what you can do." When they got to the parsonage, Tom Thumb crept into the room and saw all the fine silverware and other pretty things. Then he immediately yelled with all his might, "Do you want everything that's in here? Can't you just be quiet? You don't want to wake everybody up." But Tom Thumb acted as if he hadn't understood them, and he yelled again, "What do you want? Do you want everything that's in here? Should I start with the silverware?" That was when they heard the cook, who slept in the adjacent room. She sat up in bed and listened. But the thieves, in their fright, had run off a little distance. Finally, they took heart again, thinking, "The little chap is trying to tease us." They came back and whispered to him, "Now be serious and hand us something to us." Then Tom Thumb yelled once more as loud as he could, "Yes, I'll give you everything. Just stick your hands out. Here come the spoons." The listening maid heard that distinctly. She jumped out of bed and stumbled into the room. When the thieves saw her, they lit out, running as fast as if the devil himself was after them. As for the maid, when she didn't notice anything unusual, she went to light a candle. Little did she realize Tom Thumb had hidden himself on the candlestick. The maid went out to the barn to see if the thieves were hiding there, and she searched every corner. Finding nothing, she finally went back to bed, thinking maybe she'd just been dreaming after all. Tom Thumb had climbed around amid the wisps of hay and found a fine place for sleeping. He intended to get a good night rest and then go home to his parents. But other things were in store for him. The maid got out of bed to feed the livestock. Her first trip was to the barn, where she seized an armful of hay from the very area where poor Tom had been sleeping. He was sleeping so soundly he didn't wake up. And it wasn't until he was in the mouth of a cow which had snatched up with the hay. "Oh God!" he shouted. "How did I get into the fulling mill?" But soon he realized he wasn't in the fulling mill. He was in the cow. He had to take care not to fall between the teeth and get crushed. After that, he still had no choice but to slide down along into the cow's stomach. "They forgot to put windows in this here parlor," he said, "and no sunshine gets in. Smells pretty bad, kind of damp, and nobody's coming with a candle." All in all, he was displeased with his quarters, and, worst of all, fresh hay was constantly coming through the door, and the space was getting smaller and smaller. Too small for Tom Thumb. In his anguish, he finally shouted as loud as he could, "Don't bring me any more fodder! Don't bring me any more fodder!" At that moment, the maid was milking the cow, and when she heard someone talking, but she couldn't see anyone, she assumed it was the cow. She was so scared she slid off her stool and spilled the milk. In the greatest haste, she ran to her master, crying, "Oh God, parson, the cow spoke!" "You're crazy," the parson replied. But he did go to the stable in person, intending to see what was going on. Scarcely had he set foot inside when Tom Thumb shouted again, "Don't bring me any more fodder! Don't bring me any more fodder!" Then the parson himself got scared, thinking that an evil spirit had possessed the cow, and he ordered the animal killed. Then they decided to eat the cow because they didn't want to waste the meat. The stomach and other entrails were thrown into the dung heap. Tom Thumb had a terrible time working his way out, but he finally managed to get enough space to get out of the stomach. Just as he was brushing himself off, a new misfortune arrived. A hungry wolf ran over and swallowed whole the stomach in one big gulp. Tom Thumb didn't lose heart. He thought, maybe the wolf will listen to reason, and he called out of his paunch, Dear wolf, I know where you can find a wonderful meal. Where can I get it? Asked the wolf. In a house I know of. You just have to creep in through the drain pipe, and you'll find much cake, bacon, and sausages as you can eat. And he gave him the exact description of his father's house. The wolf didn't have to be told twice. He loved bacon. And in the night he squeezed into the drain pipe and ate to his heart's content out of the pantry. When he was full, he wanted to go back out, but he had become so fat he couldn't get out the same way. Tom Thumb had counted on that, and from inside the wolf's body he now started to make a horrendous noise, ranting and yelling as loud as he could. Will you be quiet? Asked the wolf. You'll waken the people. Come on now, the little fellow replied. You've eaten till you're full. I want to have a little fun too. And he started again to yell and jump and dance with all his might. This finally awakened his father and mother, who ran to the pantry and looked through the door crack. When they saw the fat wolf inside, they ran away, the man fetching an axe and his wife a scythe.
Now stay behind me, dear, the man said as they entered the pantry. If he's not dead yet after I give him a mighty blow, you've got to lie into him and cut his body open with your scythe. Then Tom Thumb heard his father's voice and called, Father dear, I'm here. I'm in the wolf's body. His father said, full of joy, Thank heavens, our dear, dear child has made his way back.
He ordered his wife to put away the scythe to avoid injuring Tom Thumb. Then he swung and landed a blow on the wolf's head that killed it instantly. Next, they fetched a knife and scissors and carefully cut the wolf's body open and pulled the little fellow out again.
Oh, my son, the father said, how worried we were about you. Yes, Father, I've had many adventures out in the world. Thank heaven I can breathe fresh air again. Where were you? Oh, Father, I was in a mouse hole, in a cow's stomach, in a wolf's paunch. Now I'm going to stay with you and Mama. And we won't sell you again for all the riches in the world, I promise, his parents said. And they hugged and kissed their beloved Tom Thumb. They gave him what food they had left and drink, and they made new clothes for him because his old ones had been badly damaged during his travels. And the three of them lived happily ever after. The end.